Hello friends. I've seen like this meme going around that says something like, you know, even if you stopped buying X item for 10 years, you would have saved this amount of money, still wouldn't be enough for a down payment on a house. And this meme implies that you should just keep buying little stuff because you're never going to save enough money for a house no matter what you do. And they're not wrong. Housing is crazy expensive right now. And interest rates are crazy expensive. So I've been trying to calculate how much money it would take for us to move back to Maryland. And even if we had an even swap of our house, like we wouldn't be able to afford it at all. So, you know, this meme is not wrong, but this channel, and by the way, I do think that everyone should be able to have some nice things. I don't think that we should have to deprive ourselves of like every last little indulgence in life. But we live in the world we live in. We live in this practical reality, no matter how much it sucks sometimes. And this channel in particular is geared toward the idea that your number one priority in life is to have creative freedom. That you're not so much into spending a lot of money on stuff or travel or concerts or anything. That the thing that you want most of all, at least that is the experience that I'm speaking from, is to be able to make my own hours and pursue my art in my own way. And I'm willing to give up nearly anything to have that. So I pretty much lived my entire life based around that concept. And I'm now 43. So we're talking 25 years now since I got my first job and moved out of the house that I've been arranging my life around the idea that I want this creative freedom. So I wanted to talk about like 25 years in, was it worth it? Because there's a lot of talk about like giving up all these little things in the moment, how if you give up this or that, you know, you might be able to have this in exchange. And to a lot of people, it can seem like, why would I give up all these little things with the hope that I might be able to achieve this goal that seems so impossible, like buying a house or even like retiring early or scaling back on hours at your job? Is it worth it to give up so many things along the way to get there? And if your priority is something else, like being able to provide for a family, or you really love travel, or you want to have nice cars, or whatever it is, if you want to have that like financial freedom rather than time freedom, then this video is not so much for you. And I am not in any way judging those choices. I think they're totally valid. This is just what this channel is about. So when I talk about these things, just know I'm not saying like this is what everybody should do. That would be kind of silly. And if you're new to this channel, my name is Lydia Foxglove and I'm a fantasy author. I've been a full-time fantasy author since 2009. And I've never worked full-time for anybody else in my entire life. So getting back to this whole meme of, I first saw it based around books because of course I follow a lot of book people and my number one indulgence is books and records and food. But I first saw it as like, if you don't buy the $20 book for 10 years, you'll still only have X amount and you won't be able to afford a down payment on a house. But I've since seen it pop up for some other things as well. And I don't think that the problem with anybody's like lifestyle choices is buying one book. It's really more like if you have a whole bunch of things that you like to indulge in. And again, it's totally fine if you like those are your life choices. But there's something about the attitude of if you give up X, you still won't have enough money to buy a house that I wanted to talk about because it can give you a certain like permissive attitude toward just spending poorly thought out money. And over the decades that I have been frugal and I've been saving money, all the moments in my life that have given me financial security, they happened because I was preparing for conditions to change. So, for example, right now, houses are not very affordable. This was also true when I was in my 20s, when I sold my first book. The housing market was just starting to be affected by the 2008 recession because this was, when I sold my first book, it was summer of 2008. So either the 2008 financial crash was like just happening or maybe hadn't happened yet. I don't remember what month that was. I feel like it was a little later in the year, but anyway, the housing market had not really been affected by the 2008 market crash because it was like just happening, and housing prices move very slowly compared to like the stock market or more general economic conditions. But at that point in life, I really wanted to buy my own house, and I wanted to leave Florida where I had grown up. I wanted to move up to some more northern climate, have 4 seasons and access to mountains and just northeast, well, mid-Atlantic really, culture, and be closer to some friends I had in DC and in New York City. So I just kind of like kept saving money with the hope that I would be able to afford a house in the future, whether because I made more money or because houses got cheaper. And what happened? Kind of both happened. I did make a little more money and houses got a lot cheaper. They started to bottom out in like 2012, and I was ready for this because I had been waiting, saving money, being very frugal, and now I was able to buy my first house at like half price. So currently, the things that you give up, you're right, they probably aren't going to buy you a house because houses are running anywhere from $200 to $50 gazillion depending on what part of the country that you live in. And chances are, if you live in one of the areas where houses are the cheapest, your economic conditions are not that great, which can be good if you're working as a creative and you make your money as a writer or an artist or a YouTuber. But if you in any way rely on the local economy, not as great. And after I had bought this first house, I was very broke for some years after that. But then when my indie writer career started to take off, I already had the house, my expenses were very cheap, and honestly, I didn't have anything that I wanted that badly, except that I just wanted to secure my financial freedom. And despite how much money I was making at the time, it didn't really feel very safe. So I just kept saving money, just like I had always done. Was trying to get up to a point where I had enough money that like I was basically like very few things were going to put me in a really bad place. And in 2019, we ended up wanting to move again. Houses were still fairly affordable in 2019, and we were able to like upgrade to a house that was a little more modern, a little less of a fixer-upper. We moved close to my parents, and I still kept saving money after that because I still wanted to get to a point where like basically around this time, around 2019, I started to read about the financial independence retire early or FIRE movement. The idea with the FIRE movement is you save enough money that you can retire early and you can just live off of like the returns from your investments. Now, I don't want to retire because I absolutely love what I do. So the retire early part is not of interest to me, and I would presume that I'll probably always be making at least some money on my creative work. But the financial independence part was of keen interest to me because there really is nothing that I want more than the freedom to create the art I want to create. And because I have prioritized this my whole life, I have had a lot of freedom with my time. Now I work really a lot of hours. I work quite hard. Sometimes I just don't take a break for like a whole month. So it's not that I'm just chilling, but day to day I do have a lot of freedom in how I spend my time. Like when I get up in the morning, I can wake up whenever I want. I can slowly roll out of bed all grumpy and take like 2 hours to become a real human. And I can just make myself a leisurely cup of tea and sip it and thumb through YouTube or read something. And then I can take the time to make a nice home-cooked meal midday. And if I feel sick, I can take a sick day anytime I want. I can go do something on a weekday anytime I want. I have total freedom with my time, even though I work a lot. And now and then throughout my life, I've had a friend or acquaintance who seems a little jealous of the amount of free time that I have. But what they probably don't realize is all the things that I've given up to have that level of free time. And I do feel incredibly fortunate to be at this point where I do have quite a lot of creative freedom and time freedom. But it was not something that was just handed to me. I did not get like extremely lucky. I've had some extremely lucky moments in my life that helped me get here, but if I had not been very frugal throughout the good times and the bad times, if I had not just kind of disciplined myself to not really want to spend that much money and not really strive to have fancy vacations or like really fancy anything throughout my life, I would not have this level of freedom. I just wouldn't. It does take a lot of giving up on the X item that just seems like a tiny thing. Anybody who knows me in real life, I'm pretty disciplined all the time. In fact, I have a bad habit of talking like I'm really poor. And part of that, I mean, it probably isn't healthy because I do kind of believe in like manifesting to a certain degree and that you shouldn't say negative things. But I can't entirely seem to break myself out of it because it's part of my discipline is just always keeping the mindset like I can't afford that. I don't have a lot of money. I don't necessarily recommend that you do this. Again, I don't know if that's really very healthy, but part of it too is that, you know, we have this kind of ideal, especially in America, that like the goal is to get to a point where you are making more money and you can buy and have and do whatever you want. And when I really think about it, I don't necessarily really want a lot of those things. I mean, sure, I have things I would love to spend money on if I could. It would be great to get a massage now and then. Sometimes I look at nicer restaurants and think, wouldn't it be amazing to have the kind of life where I could go to a nicer restaurant and it didn't seem like the event of the century had to be the cause for it? But I've also been legit kind of poor for enough years in my life to know that what makes the best memories in life and what brings me the most happiness is not any of those things. That some of the happiest memories in my life have been little outings I went on where I had almost no money at all and we just had to like make our own fun. And keeping that realization in mind has helped me set my priorities throughout my life. Just knowing that the deepest joy I have often comes from those little things in life. Just being able to get up in the morning, make myself a wonderful cup of tea that smells so good, read a book, make a beautiful homemade lunch with fresh vegetables and listen to some good music while I'm cooking, then have the afternoon ahead of me to write or work on YouTube and just be able to do creative stuff. Honestly, the thing I would love to do most of all is just be able to have like a cup of coffee with one of my writer friends a little more often, but they all live far away. But when I was younger, I definitely yearned for more things more often. So it was kind of an internal battle with myself as to how much money I was going to spend versus save. And I definitely thought that if I got to a point where I had a lot of money, then I would want to buy all these things. And it really sucks sometimes to deny yourself certain experiences that your friends have had. I'm certainly not immune to a certain level of envy that a lot of my friends have been able to go abroad on these wonderful vacations. But I do realize that it is more just kind of FOMO than it is that I independently really want to do these things. I don't even like travel that much. So it's more just a sense of like, I want to do what the cool kids are doing. And that was particularly true during the years where I was like grinding to get to this point of financial stability because it felt like I would kind of never get there. And I wondered, am I giving this stuff up for any reason at all? And now that I'm in my 40s, I'm starting to actually reap the benefits of a lifetime of being frugal. The other day, I logged into the Social Security government website that like tells you how much money you've made throughout your life. And when I calculated all the money I made and then averaged it, I've made an average of $33,000 a year. And when I paired that to like my net worth of my savings, retirement, and equity in my house, I've managed to retain like almost half of what I've made as my net worth, which with that low of income, honestly, I was kind of gobsmacked by that. Obviously, some of that is like the house gaining value and my investments gaining value. But, you know, that's kind of how investments work. You would expect that to happen. So, you know, it's not like that's cheating or anything. But how does that feel? Feels amazing because I have always worried about money. But nowadays, the way that I worry about money has changed drastically. It is not this like keep me up at night existential dread that it used to be when I was in more of the like trying to hang on to every penny I could, but not really feeling like I had a lot. My worries are no longer like, will we be able to pay the mortgage? Will we be able to pay the electric bill, the water bill? Can we afford groceries? I never worry about those things anymore because it is pretty damn unlikely I would be in a place now where I would be unable to afford those things, or where I would have to go work a shitty full-time job that I hate just to be able to afford those things. At this point, that is not impossible because, you can have a terrible medical emergency or whatever, but it's not nearly as likely as it was just based on day-to-day living. So I have a lot of free time to wonder if I'm going to have a horrible disease instead of worrying about money. And it brought me to this point where I started this YouTube channel and I started writing the books of my heart, the fantasy world that I've been working on since I was a kid and have always been driven with every inch of my soul to write, but never really could afford to write. I'm finally at the point where I can do that, and that is thanks to 25 years of being frugal. I'm finally really starting to realize the full benefits of all those tiny decisions I made throughout my entire adult life, and let me tell you, it actually feels pretty damn amazing that I have finally gained relative creative freedom, time freedom, and my worries about money are not day to day anymore. And I am a worrier, so they're probably never going to go away completely, but it does not feel like there's this daily weight on my back like there was when I was younger. So I wanted to share this experience because if you are younger, or even if you're not, and you're trying to decide when you're making decisions about what to spend your money on and thinking, is it worth it to deny myself this, or is it worth it to deny myself anything? Well, only you can really make that decision for yourself, and it won't be the case for every person. Certainly not. But I can at least go back in time to my younger self and say, you're on the right track. You are going to eventually get to the point you want to get to, and it is going to feel as good as you imagined that it would. You're finally going to be able to write your Hidden Lands books. So if you're in the middle of the slog, hang in there. But don't forget to have a little fun along the way, even if it's cheap fun. Because we can also get a little too caught up in little tiny micro decisions. I am still guilty of that sometimes, and in this case, Dade's the one who's happy to throw money around, and sometimes he will tell me, like, come on, we haven't been out in a while, have a little fun. So it's good to have that person in your life who sometimes tells you, like, you can relax. And if you're new to this channel, and you'd like to see more content like this, I talk a lot about the creative life in general, the writing life in particular, both the practical, financial, and emotional side of living a creative life. So if that sounds good to you, click that subscribe button. And if you'd like more from me, I have a Substack and a Patreon and YouTube memberships. The Patreon and Substack both have the same free content, as well as they all have a paid tier where you get bonus videos voted on by you guys every month. And if you'd like to read any of my books, there's a link in the description. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!